Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Starting with the story of the horrible woman who decided to get money from our OP's parents during COVID. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Crazy Bee wants to sue us for 600 euros while she owes us 7K. So my parents own a souvenir shop in Greece, with the rent being 300 euros a month, but on papers 100 euros a month. It's something that almost everyone does in Greece. The landlord, who's the Crazy Bee, CB, and my parents had an agreement. Due to COVID, we knew there wouldn't be a lot of tourists, so they agreed whatever money my parents make, they'll give to her. In the summer, there were no tourists. My parents barely made 1,000 euros from the shop. They told the CB that they won't be able to pay the rent throughout the winter, and she said it was okay, that she understood how things are. Fast forward to March 2021, my parents receive a letter from her lawyer saying that we weren't paying the rent for no reason, and that if they don't pay for the last 6 months from November to March in 15 days, it'll be taken to court. My parents paid the 600 euros, and about 2 months later, early May, they again receive a letter from her lawyer saying the rent for these 3 months wasn't paid, and it'll be taken to court. We understood that she lied to the lawyer about not getting the money, so my parents are taking her to court because she owes us around 6,000 to 7,000 euros. She'd asked multiple times my parents for money because she owes a lot of money to the bank. Thank God my parents weren't dumb and signed a written agreement, and they'll give her the money as long as she returns it. I'd like to add that my parents had the money to pay her throughout the winter, but I was supposed to have an open heart surgery, so they wanted to save some money. In the end, after a lot of exams, I'll not need a heart surgery, maybe later in my life, in my 50s, but not now. There's a saying, money doesn't leave this hand until I get a receipt for it in that hand. I'm hoping your parents have receipts for all that they've given to her so they can show when they paid any rent and should file a countersuit to get back what they gave her for taxes. And our second story. Sharing is caring, and Karen ain't caring. One day I was walking through City Market with my mom. The quiet buzzing of the lights, only slightly annoying. All seemed well, and I decided to get one of the sample cookies from the back. Seems perfectly normal, right? So I grabbed my cookie, which happened to be the last non-burnt one, as another family's coming into the back aisle. I'm not a particularly social person, so I started to walk away. This family consisted of a mother and a son, the son being maybe 5 or 6 years old by my estimates, wearing a vibrant and disgusting shade of yellow. The mom had a typical Karen haircut and a bland red-colored sweater over a bright white shirt and brand-new-looking skinny jeans. That didn't sound like a good time to me. They realized that there aren't any more non-burnt cookies, which in my opinion shouldn't be a problem. Cookies are cookies, especially free ones. The child wails horrifically and notices that my cookie, that I haven't taken a bite out of yet, wasn't burnt. Wonderful observation skills, little Timmy. The mom approaches me and asks in a sickly sweet tone, one you can tell is obviously faked, if I wouldn't mind giving my cookie to her kid. I wasn't sure if the tone was from her having a headache from dealing with the kid or if she wasn't a nice person, but seeing as the kid was young, I chose to be nice and broke my cookie in half, offering one of the halves to the kid because I wasn't about to miss out on eating my cookie, nor was I about to grab another one as I felt it'd be just as rude to the next people. The kid looked confused at this, which immediately felt off. The mom's face contorted from nice to confused to offended very quickly, as if not offering the entire cookie had somehow forsaken her entire family, and she stared at me like I was going to sacrifice a goat in order to curse them. I naturally was confused, and realizing what was happening a bit too late, backed away and tried walking away. The lady placed her hand on my shoulder, preventing me from walking away. I was maybe 12 at the time, so I was small boy. She held out her other hand as if expecting me to just hand my cookie away. Let me once again state that I tried to share, but Karen and her little hellspawn don't seem to understand the concept of sharing, evident by the atrocious wailing the child was releasing from the depths of the underworld itself. I hate the sounds of children crying. I managed to pull away from the iron grasp of this lady and speed walked away. The guttural release from both her and her entitled child gave me the chills as she marched up to me and tried to take the cookie from me. Before she could, a light bulb flickered on, before bursting in my head from the excitement to see the next levels of rage and profanities my plan was about to induce. I stuffed the entire cookie in my mouth. Now, these cookies were fairly big, bigger than the basic sugar cookies they usually give, so my mouth was stuffed. For a moment, Karen and her child are silent, stunned at what they just witnessed. 10 seconds later, the gates of hell are ripped from their hinges. Karen exploded at me, screeching profanities at me, many of which I surprisingly hadn't heard before. I stood there, the smuggest grin on my little face, as I slowly chewed on the cookie, continuing to rub salt in the wound, until the profanities turned into indiscernible noises. Was it wrong of me to do so? Probably. Do I regret doing so? Absolutely not. After maybe 3 minutes of random sounds ejecting from the deep, dark chasm this woman produced, she stopped to take a breath. I had swallowed the cookie by now and was getting tired of listening to the white noise this lady was projecting, so I began to walk away. "I'm not done with you," she yelled after me. Obviously, I chose to ignore her at this point, as I was just done with her. As soon as I was out of the aisle, I booked it back to my mom and continued on like nothing had happened. I don't know you, but I am so proud of your 12-year-old self. And our last story. Do you want your forgery documents sent to court? Sure. I work at a translation office. Our job is basically to translate official documents, work certificates, academic degrees, medical papers, etc., to be used in other countries. The whole service is controlled and monitored by the judiciary, and we're basically under their direct supervision. My boss had to be directly certified by the court. Some countries also require our translation to be double certified by the local court and/or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's pretty routine work most of the time, but since these are official documents, there are a lot of rules we have to follow, like what documents can be issued at official translation and how much we're allowed to charge, down to the smallest pennies. My boss is usually a super cool guy and does all he can to help people who come in, sometimes even refusing pay from people who can't afford it, even though he still has to pay the tax for the income since it gets registered in the system. Now, this is actually something my boss did. I fully agreed with him, but it wasn't my call to make. Last week, some guy, let's call him Mr. X, comes in and brings us a bunch of documents to translate, including work certificates, his academic diploma, and transcript of his grades, and some other stuff. He brought them in 2 batches, so by the time we received the second set of documents, his first set was already translated and double certified by the court and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. His grade transcripts were in the first batch, his diploma was in the second batch. This will be important later. At first, he refused to give us his diploma, saying that his mother had hidden the documents to prevent him from traveling abroad. Not the strangest thing we've heard, so whatever. But we kindly inform him that we're not allowed to issue a translation of copies, so we have to at least see the original document. So does the court and the ministry. So he goes and gets it a couple days later. Now, I was the one in charge of his translations, and the moment I picked up his diploma, something felt off. It was too heavy. I actually had to check several times to make sure it wasn't 2 or 3 documents stuck together. A closer examination showed that a post stamp attached to the back was not real, but instead a copy. Strange. I call my boss now, since I'm sure this is a forgery. He comes, checks the document, but it's really strange. These documents have forgery prevention measures like holograms, UV light-sensitive prints, and seals, and most of them are in order, except the stamp on the back and the fact that the photocopy looks strange. At this point, I just suggested calling the cops and let them deal with it, but my boss, the good guy that he is, didn't want to get the guy in trouble, and said that he wasn't 100% sure, more like 90%, so he had someone bring it to the court to check, but instructed that person to be discreet, get their opinion, and get out with the document, not leave it there as evidence. So they did just that. Within the hour, the document was back in our hands with a suggestion from a court official that we probably should treat it as a forgery. Hearing that, my boss decides to get the fake diploma to the guy and send him away, as long as he brings us the translation we issued for his grade transcripts, which was for the same course as the diploma, so was also probably fake. He even offered to pay back the money he paid just to get the translation for us. Get your things and go be a criminal somewhere else. Pretty lenient if you ask me, but it's his business, not mine. The next day, we get a call from the local court asking us why we're refusing to send the document belonging to Mr. X to the court to be certified. Turns out the guy had gone to court and filed a complaint against us because we refused to do his work. So now my boss is pissed and does just as Mr. X wanted, sends the forged diploma to the court. They, of course, immediately can tell it's a forgery. They seized it, opened an investigation against Mr. X, and now he's on the hook for multiple crimes, some of them with serious jail time. The court also asked us to give the serial number for all the documents ever translated under this guy's name. Everything, including ID documents, work certificates, everything, so that they can contact all embassies and warn them about the possibility of forgery, which probably means the guy will be blacklisted in every country that matters. My boss made some excuse at first about not having all the serial numbers ready, but then Mr. X came in Monday with his father and issued some strange threats. So the next workday, all the serial numbers were at court. We also didn't have to pay his money back. And to think, had he just done as asked, he wouldn't be on the hook for so many crimes, and he'd also receive a full refund. I'd still call the police personally, but I have to admit this was more entertaining. Some people don't know when to shut up and leave things alone because it's what's good for them. This guy's a perfect example. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.